That Kennedy had a very, very serious medical problem. He was not going to admit that he was sick. Nothing he was going to say he could not do.
It was the height of the Cold War. As America and the Soviet Union stood on the brink of war, President John F. Kennedy was a man grappling with difficult medical problems. While the fate of the world hung in the balance, the president of the greatest power on earth was battling debilitating disease. The story behind the story of the Kennedy years.
To all sections of the country, spelling out his views on domestic and foreign policy.
In July 1960, when Senator John F. Kennedy began his campaign to become president, Americans faced a turning point in their history. Do they vote for the gray establishment figures of the Eisenhower years, or do they vote for a young, dynamic, and progressive Kennedy?
I made my judgment long ago that the basic issue of this campaign was the question of whether the people of the United States believed it was time they started moving again. They started going forward again.
But Kennedy was hiding a secret that he feared would destroy his chances of ever being elected president. In July 1960, John F. Kennedy was poised to win the nomination of the Democratic Party, his first step to becoming president. But an incident from his past was about to come back to haunt him. 13 years earlier, in 1947, a doctor had been called to a London hotel. One of the guests is seriously ill. He's confused and dizzy. He's too weak to stand. His body is racked with pain, and he can't stop vomiting. He drifts in and out of consciousness. The guest is John F. Kennedy. The doctor had recognized all the hallmarks of Addison's disease, a serious condition. Kennedy's adrenal glands, vital organs essential to the body's defenses, had failed.
The adrenal glands make cortisol, and it's a terribly important hormone. It's one of the most important hormones. And what cortisol appears to do is act as a stress hormone. And if you don't have cortisol, you don't respond to stress. So the patient just feels tired, they feel debilitated, they look rather emaciated. Life just isn't worth living.
Kennedy was only 30 years old, but the Addison's disease was robbing his energy and vitality. But the events in London showed that the disease also had a sinister and unpredictable side.
The danger is that they may suddenly undergo some sort of severe stress or some sort of accident. The body then hasn't got the reserve of cortisol to fight that, and it can be lethal. They can die.
Kennedy's trip to Europe was cut short, and he returned to the care of his own doctors. The outlook was grim. He had been diagnosed with a disease that was sapping his energy and could strike without warning during times of great stress. But he chose to keep his illness hidden. He would keep this secret throughout his life, even as he prepared to seek the highest office in the land. In 1960, the Kennedy campaign would face disaster when the state of his health was revealed. To reach the White House, Kennedy first had to secure the nomination of his party as their presidential candidate. But his rivals were out to stop him. India Edwards, a Democratic Party leader, had somehow unearthed Kennedy's secret. Kennedy faced a dilemma. If the public knew the full extent of his condition, he'd never be elected. So he decided to issue a blunt denial.
John F. Kennedy does not now, nor has he ever had an ailment described classically as Addison's disease. Any statement to the contrary is malicious and false.
The voters believed Kennedy's denials, and he won the Democratic nomination. But now he had to win the election. On this occasion, his disease would prove an asset rather than a liability.
Side effects of Addison's are that you have a perpetual tan. It gives you not
jaundice, but something along the way, and your hair never turns. So that John Kennedy always looked like he was coming off the beach, and he had this great head of brown hair and whatnot, which in fact were side effects of the disease.
One of the most interesting things about his Addisonian bronzing is that it might have been, ironically, it might have been responsible for his winning the election over Richard Nixon. Because in 1960, there were 4 television debates, the first time we ever had television debates between the 2 major party candidates. And that first debate with Nixon probably affected the outcome of that election dramatically and probably changed the course of American history. And the thing that seems to have affected perception so dramatically, first of all, was that Nixon was sick. He had a fever, he was perspiring, it was not his night. Whereas Kennedy looked to be not only cool, but tanned and healthy. And Kennedy won that first debate hands down.
Looking tanned and healthy, Kennedy won the election with the tiniest of margins.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Although Kennedy had fulfilled his dream of becoming president, he had misinformed the American people by denying his disease.